Welcome, everyone, to episode 57 of the Bunker Talk. Today, it's a super special one. I'm so excited to have David Carothers with us. Thank you for coming all the way from Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, my God. I woke up this morning, I'm like, what am I going to do? Let's drive to South Florida and record podcasts.
Tell everybody who you are, what you do.
My name is David, and I am a daddy and a husband first. That is my favorite job in the world, and anything else I do funds those activities. And Lord knows I need to have a lot of revenue streams to fund those activities. But I own an independent insurance agency in the greater Tampa Bay area, as well as I'm a facilitator of a coaching community for middle market commercial insurance producers, and I'm a podcast host, and that's probably a good place to stop.
A whole bunch of other stuff. It's all intertwined.
It does. It intertwines, and I'm involved with a lot of nonprofit work, but I don't really talk about that as much as I probably should, just because I think there's a fine line that people view between patting yourself on the back and actually doing the right thing and bringing awareness to stuff. But I am involved in a lot of stuff that caters to the special needs and developmental disability community, because my youngest son, has significant special needs. And so kind of pulled us in, and I want to do what I can to help him and by extension others.
Tell everybody how you got into insurance, because I think it's also fascinating, the different lives you've had.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. And I find myself more and more realizing that even though I was in retail for such a long period of time, it's prepared me for where I'm at now, if you allow that stuff to happen. But originally, it's crazy. I played baseball my whole life, played ball in college, blew my arm out, thought I was going to get better. This is back before Tommy John surgery was a normal thing. And I'll never forget when I decided, okay, I need to grow up and be an adult now. I packed up all of my stuff in that time. At that time, I had an Isuzu Amigo soft top. It was awesome, by the way. Greatest vehicle ever to live in a college town. I was living in Morgantown, West Virginia. We would take the top off on that thing, and there was just enough room to have a driver, a passenger, two people in the back seat, and a pony keg in the middle with solo cups, driving down the main drag, just handing out beers to people for no reason. So anyhow, loaded all my stuff up, left Morgantown, West Virginia, drove straight through to Birmingham, Alabama. I got there, and my little sister was a head cashier at a grocery store. And I said, I got to get a job. What am I going to do? I got to move on with my life and figure out how I'm going to finish school and everything else. And so she asks the store manager, are we hiring for anything? He said, tell him to come down. I'll talk to him this afternoon. So I did what I had been taught to do. That is take a shower, shave, groom myself. I put on a suit and tie, walk in the front door, and the guy looks at me and he goes, can I help you? And I said, I'm Kristen's brother. I'm here to talk to you about a job. He said, he just laughed at me. He goes, why are you dressed in a suit and tie? I said, because I was raised that you show up like you want the job. Right. And he goes, I'm not even going to ask you any questions, man. When can you start? He goes, I said, well, I'd like to know what I'm doing. He goes, you got two options. He said, you can start full-time in the dairy department for $5.85 an hour, or you can be an overnight stocker for $6.35 an hour. I was not doing math well that day, and I realize now that for literally $20 a week, I made myself available for the graveyard shift. Yeah. Horrible idea. But the industry was crazy because there was no ceiling to the opportunity. If you were willing to work and you had even half a brain, you could do really, really well. And so my goal always was, I don't ever want to get a raise. They review you and give you a raise every 6 months when you're in retail like that. I always wanted to get promoted before I got a raise. So I worked my rear end off, and like anything else, I have to understand every piece and part of what I'm doing. So I started, and some part of me probably thought I was going to be the next Kurt Warner, who had an athletic career, albeit his was much further advanced than mine, stocked groceries for a little bit and then came back, and next thing you know, he wins the Super Bowl. No, that's what was going to happen. So I just decided I need to go all in. And I spent 18 months there, and they tried to give me my first store. And I'm like, you know what? This is not, you want me to have total responsibility. I still don't know how to run the seafood department, how to run the bakery, how to run the deli or whatever. I said, let me go work time in those departments, because if I'm going to be responsible for profitability, I have to know how to fix profitability issues. And so they did. And then ultimately, like 2 years after I walked in the door, I was running a $16 million a year store. And that's not me bragging. It was actually terrifying. But when the retail operations superintendent came in and gave me the story, he said, we're going to give you this one because we don't think you can screw it up any worse than it already is. And, it's you run this right, you're going to get the next one. And so it was a really good experience for me. I was 22 or 23 at the time. I wasn't that separated in terms of age from the high school kids that were working with me. And, I wasn't the most mature 22 or 23-year-old either, even though I was already married. And so I had a great time learning the industry. I learned high volume, low margin. I learned the importance of customer service. I learned how to diffuse bad situations quickly and in person, because when somebody's pissed off at you at a grocery store, they're standing there on the front end. And I learned, how much easier your job became if you invested in other people and you helped get as much potential from them as you could. And, it's crazy. I got some sad news this week. One of my good friends was a kid, like literally a kid, when I hired him, passed away from colon cancer. So gentlemen, here's my public service announcement. Get your colonoscopy no matter how bad you don't want it, because I had no idea the guy was sick. And I found out I was actually on the new producer's Zoom. No, actually it was on Friday afternoon. I was on the protege call and I got a text or a DM from his cousin saying, hey, I need you to call me. And I'm like, what's going on with Juan? I went to his Facebook page and said, dude hasn't posted in a month. And he's like, he's not doing well. Hospice said he's not going to make it through the weekend. And I'm like, God. And I mean, I think back, and this is a dude that walked in. He had dropped out of high school. I encouraged him heavily to go get his GED, which he did. Took him over to the bank, taught him how to open up his bank account, taught him how to put money aside for savings and have a budget, why 401k was important. And I mean, this is a dude that literally followed me everywhere I went. When I got transferred to another store, he put in his transfer paperwork. When I left and started my landscape company, in between the time I was at Winn-Dixie and Target, he left and he ran a crew for me on my landscape company. When I went to Target, he immediately went to Target. And then ultimately I left to get in the insurance industry, and he ended up going to work for Jim Walter in the mines and ended up with a really, really good job. And he did very well for himself. But he's just one of like 36 stories or more that I have of my time doing that. And it's something I really never even talk about. But this last week, I've been forced to sit back and reflect on that. And I'm like, holy crap, there's a lot of people out there that have nothing to do with the insurance industry that I've still had some level of impact on. So I got a lot of foundational skills doing that. I finished my college degree while I was doing that. And then Grayson's 2 years old. I'm like 31, 32. It's like, what do I want to be when I grow up? And that was the question. Like I was working my rear end off. I was working overnights because I was responsible for logistics and new store replenishment and setup and traveling around fixing broken stores with Target. And my dad was a career risk manager. A lot of people don't know that. My dad was in the insurance, is in the insurance industry and has been with me, but he was a career risk manager and safety guy. When I was born, he was a highway patrolman, but he took a job with U.S. Steel as an accident investigator when my mom said he wasn't allowed to be a cop anymore. And, his career went from there. So I reached out to him like I always did for advice. And I just said, what do I want to do, man? I mean, I'm tired of working hours and my hourly rate diminishing. I want to do something where if I work more hours, I work harder, I work smarter, that I'm going to be able to accumulate wealth in a good income at the same time. And he verbatim, he said, I honestly felt like you always would be a really good commercial insurance producer. He said, I buy at the national account level, and the clowns that I buy from, you could run circles around. I know that. So if you could get into the industry, I think you could have some level of success. I said, well, how would I go about doing that? He said, I'll make a lunch appointment for you. And so he did. And the guy that I met with was Lowry Baldwin, who started Baldwin Insurance Group back in 2004 after selling Davis Baldwin, but that's now the Baldwin Group that's all over everywhere and owns almost everything. So I flew from Birmingham down to Tampa on a Southwest flight. I had lunch with him at the original Outback on Henderson Avenue in Tampa because they wrote Outback and we only went places we represent. And I spent about an hour and a half with him, and he said there were two things he said that got me to make the decision that this is what I wanted to do. The first one was the insurance industry is full of C players. It's average people. And I mean, by the way, people, don't shoot the messenger. I didn't say it. Lowry did, and I can give you his email. But
well, he's not wrong.
Yeah, but the bottom line is he said it's average. People aren't going to do anything they have to do to go above and beyond because you can do just enough to get by and make really, really good money doing it. And he goes, and they're never going to push themselves. If you're an A player, you're going to compete against C's all the time. And he goes, you can't help but win. The other thing he told me was the way he was sitting out a non-compete at the time. So he wasn't even in a position to hire me. He was just advising me at this point. He said, but I'm reconstituting my firm. I'm sitting out my non-compete. When I'm ready, I would love to give you the opportunity to come and work with us. He said, I want you to think about it like this. Everybody has $100 to spend in insurance. And those $100 is in $20 bills. Your job is to go get as many of the 20s as you can. And he goes, think about it like this. You have personal lines, commercial, employee benefits, life, and retirement planning. Each one of those is a 20. I'm building my firm so you can go in and you can get all the 20s every time. And I liked that idea because you might not always have an entry point with what you do, but if you could bring somebody from the firm in to at least establish the relationship, ultimately that business is going to come back to you. So I ended up taking his advice. I went back. I packed up my F-150, came back down to Florida and said, you know what? I'm not waiting a year and a half for this guy's non-compete to get up. I'm going to go get my license now and see what I'm worth in the marketplace. And that's where things really got nasty for me because I found out that even though I had 2 college degrees, 10 years of experience in operations, was making couple $100,000 a year in income, I couldn't get hired as a $25,000 junior producer because nobody was willing to take a chance on me. And so I interviewed at 12 places before finally number 13, a local agency, said, hey, you grew up in Brandon, just come work with us. We'd love to have you here, blah, blah, blah. And I never talk about that either. I was there for about a year and a half. And then when Lowry's non-compete came up in 2004, I went to work as the first dedicated commercial producer of what's now the Baldwin Group, which is crazy to think about because those guys, we were six or eight people in a cubicle farm back then, and now they're everywhere you look. I mean, I was at one of the Rays games, and they're plastered all over the stadium there and everything else. But the reality is, my last name's not Baldwin. Never was going to be. And it was a very difficult thing for me to go from pretty much, I had a framework to manage, but I ran my locations. Me going and having to take orders from somebody else or not having the ability to give creative input or whatever, that bothered me. And so ultimately, through another whole series of events, I ended up where I'm at now. So 10 years ago, launched Florida Risk, and the rest of it's history.
And so obviously a lot of
really long-winded answer.
A lot of skill sets transferred, right? Obviously. But immediate question in my mind is, so you own an agency. What catapulted you to start a coaching community?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's one that, again, I've been very reflective the last couple of months. I'm not exactly sure why, just season of life, I suppose. But one of the things that was tough for me is when I launched Florida Risk, it was me. I mean, you know better than anybody else. I mean, that's why I tell everybody, look, if I've had any level of success, please understand it's through hard work and some luck, because I started just like everybody else did, with literally nothing, all my chips pushed to the center of the table. And so I always told my wife, who has a very good job, does great work for people with developmental disabilities, but I always told her, I said, if you didn't have to travel so much and I could just focus on doing what I need to do, you would never have to work another day in your life, because I would be able to put things together that will provide for the family. And COVID made that happen. more than anything else. Like I would probably be limping. If COVID would not have happened, if there's anything positive that can come from such a catastrophic event, for me personally, that's what finally took her off the road. And when she went off the road, I wasn't Mr. Mom. I was because I was 4 separate school stops every morning and every afternoon. So if I was lucky, I was starting my workday by 10 o'clock in the morning and I was wrapping it up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You can't build an agency on 4 hours a day. I was writing business as much as I possibly could, but it was never going to go anywhere. And so COVID took her off the road, and that's where Killing Commercial, Power Producers Podcast, that stuff came from. But the agency also started to flourish because I had the ability to focus more on what was going on there and not have my mind going a million miles an hour. So that was the first time, like literally, I'll never forget. I don't remember what year, but it was Innovation when it was in San Diego. And somebody had messaged Nick Ayers in the group and said, "What are you doing to plan for coronavirus?" And I'm like, "Coronavirus?" He's like, "Nothing." Like that was pretty much it. Nobody even knew what they were talking about. It was still isolated like Washington State and Northern California or whatever. Little did we know. But I went out and I spoke and I talked about recruiting talent and sales talent and development or whatever else, and talked for like an hour. And I had like literally 50 people came up to me waiting in line after and said, "Hey, do you work with other agencies? Do you work with producers?" I'm like, I got my own set of issues I got to deal with. But at the same time, I'm like, jump on a plane, fly 5 hours back from San Diego to Tampa. I'm like, if I got to get digital to scale my agency, I could probably actually take this thing and monetize it and take my unique skill set that I've been able to build over the last decade, because I've been in the industry at 10 years at this point, and help other agencies not make a lot of the same mistakes or whatever else. So I decided, you know what, let's see what happens. No minimum viable product, no website, nothing. Literally just Facebook and LinkedIn announced that I was going to have this thing come out. And I had an incentive that if you were in the first 25 agencies to register, you got an extremely aggressive price point, and it sold out in 48 hours. And I'm like, oh, crap. Now I got to go build it. Yeah. Like, okay, I didn't think this was going to happen. And that was at the end of January. And I put a deadline on it like I do with everything. And March 1st was the deadline. And I was back working grocery hours for about the next 6 weeks, like just getting videotaped and edited and all of that stuff. But I found very early on that for me, the reward, it doesn't matter if I'm helping a client, if I'm helping somebody in Killing Commercial, if I'm hiring a 16-year-old kid that's never had a job and maybe doesn't have a dad at home. Investing in people and sharing what I know to make their life better is really what is satisfying to me more than any dollar that I'll ever make. And a lot of people will say that, but I think you would be hard pressed to talk to anybody who really knows me that wouldn't say that I live that every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, as one of the people inside of Killing Commercial, I would strongly agree.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's really the motivation. So in a non-selfish way, it's because the industry lacks those resources. And in a selfish way, it's to really feed what I need to thrive. And that is knowing that I'm investing in and helping other people get further along than they would get if I did.
Alone. Right. And so how many agents are in it now?
A lot. We have 274 or 5 agencies and about 1,700 individual registered producers. Okay. There. So it's gotten a little wacky.
So I want to ask you a question, because now you have the numbers at scale, right? For the industry at some sort of scale. What separates the top performing producers from the bottom?
It's no different than anything else in life. I swear to God, whoever came up with the 80-20 rule, I wish there was a way they made money on how many times people reference that. But that's literally what it is. And it's really intriguing to me, because what I've seen is the people that are the most invested are the people that were there at the very beginning that needed the help, or when I made the price point so high that it really hurts, those people are all invested. That middle section, which is a lot of people, and a lot of the ones you and I both know, apparently that's couch cushion money to them. Right, they paid the fee to get in, they pay the monthly, And I never hear from them. I never see them. I reach out to them. I might get an email back. I might get a return phone call. And I had to get to the point where I was okay with the fact I can't want it more for them than they want for themselves. But I joke about it. I told Andrea, I said, I feel like with some of these people, they just look at being in Killing Commercial like it's a timeshare with a monthly payment to come to Key West every year. Because that's the only time I ever see or hear from them. But the biggest difference is it goes right back to what I said. It's an average industry. It doesn't matter if you're at the bottom or the top. You're still going to have the average of whatever that level is. And if you're an A for that level, you're always going to win. And it's been really interesting to see how it scales, because even to this day, there are people that could be realizing so much more for their agency that just don't put the time and energy in. And look, I want them to, but if that's not what they want in life, it doesn't matter how bad I want it. Maybe they're okay. Maybe I taught them 2 or 3 things and that's all they need. And as long as I give them 1 or 2 good nuggets every year and they write an account that justifies the spend, they stick around. But that's been the weirdest part for me, because I can't think of too many things that I spend money on, especially on a recurring basis, that could help me propel where I'm at, that I'm not going to take advantage of it. That's just not how I'm wired.
Right. And as far as the agency owner seat, right, the business owner, what are the traits of what the top producers in Killing Commercial at the agency owner level, right? Maybe they're not in production anymore, but they recognized they needed the support. They found you. What do you see? What are the common traits in between the successful ones?
The successful agency owners, and this goes back to what I talked about with Dan today, and I think, again, this is something I think about a lot. They own the agency. They understand they own the agency. And that, to me, is the biggest differentiator, and it's honestly something that I have struggled with personally. I don't want to own the agency. I want to produce. Like, I was in operations. I can do it. But ultimately, for me, if I can somehow talk my wife into coming into the industry and being the operations person for the agency, and I can just spend time with producers and producing myself, that would be like the best job I've ever had in my life. But the people that I see, that I personally look up to, they're in my community, I think it's okay to admit there are people who you look up to because they're doing things at a level you're not quite there doing yet. They're the ones who understand that they're the agency owner, and they're not going to be out doing things that agency owners don't do. I personally believe that we're at a point with technology where you can be a producing principal and scale a huge agency. But if you look at traditional just agency business, it's the people that understand how to let go of stuff and delegate to people who are better than you at doing that, and that they're just not going to go do the things that agency owners don't do.
Yeah. That's obviously a huge part of the bottleneck of being a business owner, is getting out of that day-to-day work and stop working. It's the in versus on, which is that conversation is so easy to have, but it's really, really hard to remove yourself if you choose to, right?
100%.
So 2026, this episode is going to come out probably early 2026. If a producer or someone in sales, no matter the industry, right? But a sales...
Yeah, because I've sold a lot of stuff. I
right,
mean, it ain't just insurance. We started at the grocery business. You don't even want me going into the history before that. Or that's 3-episode miniseries.
Someone in a sales position, what do you think are the 3-4 character traits that it takes to really make it?
To really make it and leave an impact when you do make it, number one, character is first and foremost. There are so many people out there that can lie or be whatever they want to get a deal done, but it always causes more damage than good. And so for me, and this even holds true. We've had a couple slip through the cracks, admittedly, in Killing Commercial, but I'm never going to align myself with somebody that doesn't have a similar moral compass. It's just not going to happen. And even if somebody slips through the cracks, I'm going to do my best to be as positive an influence on that person as I can. So I think that you have to be a person of character and integrity, number one, because if you don't have that, none of the rest of it matters. The second piece is they have to be willing to be coachable and invest in themselves. There's not a single person out there that's reached. I don't know of anybody in the world that's reached their full potential. Maybe Shohei Ohtani, you know what I mean? But he's a freak. But if you look at the average people that we're around all the time, none of us have reached our full potential. So you have to be wanting to level up and be willing to make the investments to do that. I think that's really important. And the other piece is you have to be disciplined in your processes. You have to have a framework, know how to implement it, stick to it, and just do it over and over and over again. And I think that's where the character part, honestly, you either have it or you don't. Right. You know,
it's hard to learn.
The coachable part, I think, also is kind of tied into that. But the discipline piece, I know a lot of really good people who have great character but are horribly undisciplined. And I mean, we know a lot of the same people, but
that's a solo trait. You can only develop that yourself by yourself.
And it starts in baby steps. You know, that's why Atomic Habits is such a great book, is it gives you those baby steps that you can build on, but you have to be willing to do that.
And so then what happens if someone is doing all of these behaviors? What is your best advice for the person that's trying to do these things, right? And they're missing the mark. Is it maybe you're not cut out for the role for sales? Is it find a new organization to work for? Hire a coach?
Yeah, you know, I think so many people don't think that they're good at sales or that they're not cut out for it. I personally think anybody who has a desire to succeed, like sales is where you should go. But I think a lot of it has to do with people think there are tricks to the trade or slick language that you have to use, when the reality is you just have to have patience and be an educator. My oldest son's sitting in the room behind us right now. He had zero experience whatsoever other than I made him go work in a grocery store for a couple of years before I let him into the agency. And admittedly, I probably haven't given him, and he doesn't ask for a lot. He doesn't want a lot. I want him to figure it out on his own. So that I don't want people to think this is punitive. But up until probably the last 2 or 3 months, I hadn't really done anything at all to invest in his success. Anything he's done on his own. He's figured it out, which is kind of how we wanted it. But he's got patience. He's got product knowledge at this point. He can transfer that to people. He doesn't allow his feathers. Very, very rarely does he allow his feathers to get ruffled. If I'm not that way. Like, my feathers will be immediately ruffled no matter what. But I just think anybody can make it. It's just a matter of what direction are you headed, and do you have somebody helping you achieve that? It doesn't have to be a paid coach. Is it a mentor in the operation that you're in? Is it a general business mentor that could help you, stay on track or whatever? And it's also goes back to that investing in yourself and taking the time to really learn the industry and what you're doing. And I mean, what blows my mind about this industry is I've got people that are underwriters and wholesalers that we work with. I'm having to teach coverage to. It's crazy. I literally just closed an account, and I'm not going to get into the gory details of it because not everybody's going to be interested in insurance, but I had explained loss valuation to an underwriter and why a client has the ability to choose between actual cash value and replacement cost at the time of a claim. They thought I was making that up. They had no clue. And I'm like, no, you're actually settled at actual cash value in most cases until you provide receipts. Then you can go and they'll reimburse you for the difference. And I said, if somebody doesn't want to have to deal with coinsurance, they'll just do actual cash value, get rid of the coinsurance and the loss, and we'll call it a day and take it at actual cash value. And the underwriters, I just don't think that's right. I'm like, trust me, it's right. It's in literally every property policy I've ever written. So, but not investing in yourself and learning the business, learning just the technical stuff, because people, in our industry, it's dangerous if you don't know it. People are relying on us for advice. Right. So what's the deal?
Right. And having your own agency, obviously, so you're a father of 4 children, which is its own career, basically. You have an agency, and then you have 270 plus children as well, right? What have you learned about yourself being a mentor for so many?
That's a good question. I would say that I think we're all our own worst critic most of the time. And so I'm not immune to that. I would think that the one thing that I've learned is that I probably am more valuable to people than what I've realized over time. because I'll beat myself up over this, that, or whatever. And God dang, I mean, I am heavily invested. If I coach somebody on a deal and I'm trying to help them get it across the finish line, I want them to win that as bad as they want to win it themselves. And if something happens and it doesn't, I am just going to sit there and overanalyze all the reasons why I cost them that deal by not giving them the right advice or whatever, which probably is not fair. But what I've realized is that I think that because of my unique experiences in the way that I look at things, I'm more valuable than what I probably give myself credit for.
And how about your investment in yourself? Like, do you have a mentor yourself? Do you have a coach yourself? What does that look like for you? Like, how does one become, like, for example, the day that which I don't necessarily want to, but like if I was like, well, I'm going to start a community and I want to coach people. Like, what does that development look like? You're already almost there.
I mean, you're doing the podcast, you're sharing stuff with people. That day's already here. You just haven't figured that out yet. I think, from my perspective, number one, you have to stay grounded. I think that there's a big difference in being confident and being cocky. I'm 100% confident in my skill set. Nobody's ever going to make me feel lesser in my skill set. It doesn't matter whether it's sales technique, technical knowledge, or whatever else. I make sure that I'm on my A game every single time for that kind of stuff. But I also know that there are things that I could be better at. I could be better at communicating with my wife. I could be better at not losing my temper with my kids. I could be better at maybe some of the operational things that I tend to lose focus on inside the agency. And I think it all goes back to staying humble enough. I'm going to be confident, but I can still, you can be confident and humble at the same time. Humble enough to know that there are people out there that have done it better. And as long as it goes back to what I said before, be open to be coachable. If I'm able to be coachable,
love that for us.
It just happened.
I think the memory card's full.
Oh, all right. Well, we still recording on here.
Yeah, on the audio.
That's fine. But I think if you're humble, most people are going to be able to go and realize you need somebody who's been there, done that to help push you to the next level. It's never been an issue for me because I grew up playing team sports. I've always had a coach in everything that I've done in life. So business is no different.
There's so much similarity. I didn't play team sports, but there's a lot of similarities in between.
It is incredible. I can tell you right now, I mean, there is a direct correlation. It has to be team. It can't be, you can't be like a great ballet dancer and have that transfer. I'm sure there are some skills that would, but what I've noticed where I have clashed in the course of my career with people, it has always been people who had no team sports, because you're used to it. You miss a ground ball, your team's going to be pissed, but they're going to pick you up when you get, try and get the runs back when you get to the plate or whatever, or they're going to say, get it out of your head. It was a mistake. It's not going to happen next time. If you're going to run an agency or be part of an agency, especially if it's high growth, you've got to be able to be a team player. And that, again, that's not something that you can walk in the door if you've never been in that environment. And I can teach you while you're on the job. It takes years to get to that mentality. And, I give my parents credit for that, for getting me involved in athletics early on, because it taught me what it meant to be part of something bigger than myself.
Right. And I think that you also just handle disappointment and losses better. You can recuperate faster. You keep your eye on the bigger picture, right? Like you're losing a battle, not a war. You recover from things faster, I think. You obviously play better in the sandbox with people. All of that is critical to running a business, being in sales, customer service, to all of it, really. I mean, it's a good life skill to have in general. Obviously, you're big into the personal branding thing. And so, some of the audience may not know that. Let's talk about that a little bit. Like, you got it down.
Well, it's funny because when Dan came in here earlier, he's like, you get about personal branding. I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, come on, bro.
Big D.
Big D, he's got it nailed.
How does one begin? What's your best advice for the person that just doesn't know where to start?
Commit. That's it. Don't care what anybody else thinks. I mean, I can't think. I bet you I have more combinations of blue and yellow suits, dress suits, ties. I'm wearing Jordans right now. My watch is blue and gold. This is blue and gold. But it's crazy because when you commit to it, no matter how far-fetched or whatever it is, if you say, I'm attaching myself to this is my brand, people are going to recognize you from that. And I know that based off of the number of DMs I get of blue and yellow stuff people see. They'll be driving down the road, take a picture of a car. They're in Dollar Tree and they see something. They'll take a picture of it. I get links. I'm wearing these shoes because Eric Jolie sent me a link to these shoes. And like, I'll never be at a loss for having blue and yellow stuff. And really, that's what it is. I mean, if you literally think about it, like, Killing Commercial is a terrible name, but everybody knows what it is now. And until I told the story...
Yeah, but CBK is really good.
Yeah, but until I told the story about where CBK came from and what it meant and all of that, nobody really even had an idea of where Killing Commercial came from. And even that in and of itself is just kind of like, okay, you know... Is that the best branding I could have done? Probably not, but I committed to it and it took, you know, and I think it took because I committed to it. I wasn't going to change it. Think about all the people who can't commit to stuff in our industry for the short term, let alone the long term. Oh, I'm going to be the world's greatest content creator, but I can't get through, you know, a week's worth of content, let alone the whole next year. And meanwhile, I'm the dude that's telling you that in January 1, we're dropping Driven to Close podcast, and I'm dropping 365 episodes, one per day for the entire year. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm going to do it. I put it out there into the universe, committed to it. I have no choice. And I think that's the thing. People just, maybe it's part of character, maybe it's not. Maybe it's part of how you were raised. I was raised that when you start something, you finish it. And so, you know, when you commit to your brand, go all in. It better be something you can believe in, something you can explain, but go all in and don't deviate from it, because that's when other people are going to realize, okay, this is a thing.
And so what is your opinion on that idea of because you're obviously David Carothers, you have a brand as yourself, but then you also have these well-known entities like obviously Florida Risk Partners, Killing Commercial. They're all sharing that theme, right?
Yeah,
of the color
similar
scheme, right? But like, what is your opinion on the separation in between you, David, and these entities?
Yeah, I think that's the tough part, because I think that when you are the brand, it's much more difficult to remove yourself from the business related stuff. I feel like I've had a little bit of a leg up on most because I include my older sons in what I'm doing. So as time goes on, you know, yeah, I've created some stuff, but I've done it with Grayson and Landon. And I've stepped completely away from a lot of that stuff. People know it's mine because of the colors and the similar branding. So I'm gonna call them the boys, even though they're men. The boys have some credibility just based off of that, but the work product in the back end is 100% theirs. And it stands on its own. It's tough though. It's tough to separate. Like, could I pull myself completely out of Florida Risk right now? Absolutely not. There's no way that I could. Would love to make that my mission for the next couple of years, because when my day comes to exit, I want to be able to walk away. I don't want to have to sit around and run the same agency, get the same results for somebody else. Right. So I think it's tough. But again, it goes back to baby steps. Maybe I'm going to start working 4-day work weeks instead of 5. I'm going to come in one less day a week. Right. And then maybe 2 years from now, maybe I only work 3 days a week or whatever. And ultimately remove myself completely, although I'll probably work until the day that I die. It's just who I am, and I find joy and satisfaction in it. So for me to go into the office for a day is not like me dragging myself kicking and screaming. I truly enjoy going in because I'm either helping other agents or I'm helping clients and prospects, and I don't ever leave the office after day and say, oh, that was a waste of time coming in today. There's always something that comes out of it.
What is your, I think I'm pretty sure I know this, but what is your platform of choice for socials? Like if someone's ready to jump into that space too, like talk about your strategy. And I know obviously it's come a far way with, you know, the back office support that you have in house and all those things.
It's ridiculous now.
But you can't even
you can't even say that. I mean, my thing is pick a platform and run with it. I've always probably been equally active on Facebook and LinkedIn, specifically. I'm older than a lot of people, so those are the older platforms. That's really why. I mean, I bet you I was in the first 5,000 users on LinkedIn, and I started and I just never stopped. There were periods of times where it ebbed and flowed, but I always stayed somewhat engaged with the platform. And my advice would be, look at where your personality best fits. Like, there are some people that should only be on Instagram. Like, that's it. Very visual, whatever else, or TikTok or whatever. But figure out what's your personality best fit for. Where can you grow your audience? Go all in on that. And then you can take that and repurpose it and spread it across other platforms. If you look at my stats, it is way warped to the side. Facebook, LinkedIn, probably interchangeable. YouTube would be the third. The rest of them, I don't really have that massive following. It's just sort of tangential. But the theory has been like, well, it's almost impossible to go all in on every single platform. So it's like, let's repurpose this, format it, we'll put it out there. If it resonates with people, they'll come. If it doesn't, we just have it on another platform, and maybe somebody will see something at some point that leads to some conversation, right? What's happened is I've actually seen the TikTok and the Instagram and that has started to grow, just because we've consistently been there. I've gotten advice that says, oh, you should have your own personal Instagram instead of doing personal stuff on the power producers or whatever else. I'm like, yeah, but I am who I am. I want more people on the podcast that follow the podcast to see the more real human side of me. And so I think that's the biggest thing. But I've always said I go to LinkedIn for business credibility, and I go to Facebook for social credibility. Those were the two things. Said that for 2 decades almost now. And I think that's the thing. I can go on LinkedIn. Every once in a while I'll put something family oriented up there, but almost all the time it's something professional. I'll share some stuff over to Facebook, but most of the time it's wrestling with the kids or going to Disney or whatever else. And I think it's really important, if you're in sales, and especially if you're visible in sales, that you have a healthy mix of those two things. People need to understand we're real people too.
Right. People want to do business with humans. Yeah. And people that they like.
And it's crazy because I literally, wherever I go, people will ask about my kids by name. They'll ask about my wife by name. They'll say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you went to such and such. We were there a few years ago. Did you do this? Did you do that? And it probably, 15 years ago, we would have thought they were stalkers. Right, but now it's just normal that they know everything.
Now it's expected, right? Yeah. It's like we all know about each other's lives.
My post on such and such. That was a masterpiece.
Right. First of all, thank you so much for your time.
100%.
Second, what is the best piece of business advice that you've gotten that you can give us?
Man, that's a really good question. So many over the years. I'm going to give you guys a good piece of business advice while I continue to delay and think about the best piece of business advice. But I would tell you, if you want really good business advice, everybody should follow that kid that does School of Hard Knocks.
Yes.
My God, that guy is amazing. I absolutely love
him.
Dude.
Yep.
And so he goes to everybody and gets the best business advice. So it would be stupid for me not to tell you to follow him. But I think that probably the best piece of business advice I've ever gotten is just stay true to who you are. I say it a little differently. I tell people just be consistent in who you are, and your audience will always find you, because it's more of a social environment now. But jobs and companies are going to come and go, but people are going to remember who you are, what you did to invest in them, and how you made them feel. And if you can stay true to that, even if the money doesn't follow, you will sleep very well at night.
That's solid advice. Last question. What's the best book you've ever read that had the biggest impact on you?
I would say Daniel Wakefield's book. I'm just kidding. Sorry, Daniel, if you watch this. I read number one, my teachers would be really surprised to know that I read as much as I read. and it's tough because I don't read like full books. Now that you have snippets and micro content, it's easier to get caught in that. But I read such a diverse, like I've been on this kick lately where I've been reading these biographies of explorers like Ferdinand Magellan and Captain Cook and all of this stuff. And it's really been, that stuff's been kind of interesting to read. I would say the one that's been the most impactful, I don't want to say like best business advice or whatever else, but I think one of the books that's been the most impactful on me was Seth Godin's book, either permission marketing or permission-based marketing. And I want to pre-qualify it because I bought the book in the early 2000s when he wrote it. I didn't read it until about 3 or 4 years ago. It sat with my bookshelf of all the other books that I bought thinking I was going to read them and then got distracted. But the reason that book was so crazily impactful to me is, number one, I agreed with the marketing philosophies and things that he outlined in there. But what I thought was incredible, and if you haven't read the book, you should. I haven't, no. He literally, in the very, very early 2000s, predicted what Amazon was going to become today. And I mean, I'm sitting here reading this like, did this guy like do an updated version? And no, this like it was the original. I bought it back in the early 2000s. Right. It was the original one. And so I thought it was incredible to see and get inside his head and see the thought processes that he had, because he literally saw where the internet was going and everything else. And I think that just looking at that, learning to recognize trends and see how he put all of that out has helped me do exactly the same. So I would say that one is really, really good. Man, there's so many others, but yeah, I would say permission-based marketing. If you were talking about like just general business, I think you would be hard-pressed to not include John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Yeah, but tongue-in-cheek, Maxwell and Dave Ramsey are kind of the same. They've written the same book like 17,000 times and just changed the title and the cover to it. It's all generally the same principles. But I think if you're going to be in any kind of leadership of owning a business or whatever, you should read that. And then, you know, as far as modern day reads, I think Traction's an amazing book. Everybody should read it. It's one of those where you're just going to sit here, bang your head against the wall and say, this makes so much common sense. Why didn't I come up with it myself?
Right. Right. I actually know quite a few people, even obviously in our space and even outside of our space, that are on that EOS system.
Oh, yeah.
And it's game changing. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate your friendship, your mentorship, everything.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you and all of your family. And tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh, you can find me
everywhere.
Yeah,
we'll put it in the show notes.
It's not too hard to do. But I would say, look, when I speak publicly, I tell people from stage, I'm a social swinger. I'll connect with anybody, anywhere. Just be prepared for what you're going to get. If you go on Facebook, we share it all. LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever they call it now.
Whatever it's called.
And it's interesting because there is just a slight variation in terms of how I act. Like I get a little bit more edgy on X than I do.
I think that's what it's for.
In other places, but I feel like that's kind of the environment you're in.
That's what you're expecting over there.
I'm on all of them, and I'm happy to connect with anybody. If there's ever anything I can do to help you, please feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much.
Yes, ma'am.